Welcome to the show, Anupam. Good to have you.
Thanks for having me, man. Well, it's like really cool to be here.
Well, you've been a podcaster for 7 years. I just figured that out. That's been a while, man.
Yeah,
cool.
we're going to finish our 6th year in May and start the 7th sometime around there. But yeah, we are about, I think we'll be hitting 400 episodes every Monday, like 200 plus guests, and just lost track. It's been a whole lot of fun.
And just tell me a little bit more about your journey and the podcast as well.
So I'm a chartered accountant and I used to work in the markets for the longest till about 2018. So that's about 20 years. I got my degree in 98 and then I was working in the markets in some way or the other, but mainly as an analyst on the research side from 98 to 2018. Sometimes as a full-time analyst, sometimes as a consultant. That was actually my last role, which was with Saurabh Mukherjee, who runs Marcellus. At that point of time, he was the head of equities at Ambit Institutional Equities. Very successful at what he did, and now his fund is also doing quite well. So I worked with him as a consultant at Ambit, writing some of the reports, and then we wrote a book together called The Victory Project. That happened in 2020, released during the lockdown and pandemic and all that. And then I wrote my own book, which is called The Wisest Owl.
Yeah,
it's out. It was out last year, and I'm working on my second book, which is a biography of corporate personality. And the podcast, like I said, has been going on. So I'm 50. My whole, I've just not followed a linear path.
Yeah.
I've always loved writing, and it kind of took me a long while to actually get into it full time. So that's the small summary of it.
So now that you're 50 and today's episode, the whole crux is about finances in your 30s, right? And
Yeah.
30s is such an important decade. I'm in that. I'm on the later side of my 30s. But when I look at my journey, I wish I had more solid advice about 30s.
Yeah.
Because 30s financially, in a way, will set you up for most of your future going forward. And with the financial thing, it's also about how you look at your job, how you look at everything else, right? So that's what I wanted to get some insights from you.
You're bang on target. 30s is the foundation. When you can do shit in 30s that you can never even think of 40s and 50s. I mean, you have to take your 30s like really seriously if you want to ensure that 40s and 50s are sorted. And I don't want to get into the career and work at it because there are better people for that. I can only speak from the finances side because this is the age where you've probably spent, let's say that you graduate at 25, 26, I don't know, 27, let's say. Although some people graduate in their 30s also, but let's, for the sake of conversation, assume that you graduate in your late 20s, so you've spent about, my guess is 5 years or 7 years or 8 years in your job. Okay, I'm also going to assume that you're not someone who starts a startup straight away. Okay, because I honestly am not familiar with that side of the equation. I really don't know how that works. You probably would know more than me on that, because I think that involves a very different amount of risk, which I think changes the way you think by the time that you're in that you're in your 30s. I come from a more of a corporate or a working background where I know that by the time I'm in my early 30s, I've got a very clear idea of where I am in the job. I would say that your confidence in your job, whether it's first, second, whatever, is your highest in the 30s, and you got to use that.
Yeah.
A lot of time we kind of tend to lose track of that, So a good place to start for a lot of people would be if you understand what finances are, because at the age of 32, 33, 34, 35, you can't say that I don't know what stock market is.
Yeah.
You can't say that I don't know what mutual fund is, because that's not going to look good on you. People are saying that you need to teach this in school. But anyway, so if you've not, then that's a good place to start. Understand how stuff works. That do you have a demat? I mean, do you have the basic financial products? If you do, great. If you don't, then maybe you want to consider that. I always like to... Yeah, go on, sorry.
But it's interesting you spoke about the stock market. I think a lot of my peers, and including me for some extent, have only learned about the stock market in the last 3, 4, 5 years, not in the early 30s though.
Yeah, which is fine. I mean, interest in the stock market only comes when the market is going up. Otherwise, no one really cares much about it. But this time, of course, was very different because you've not, in living memory, had a situation where pretty much the entire working population is locked up at home and has no choice. And that led to a lot of random stuff that happened. Some of it good, not all of it good. Whether it was Netflix and all. So the stock market was just part of that. The year is 2023 now. And now you're going to see things normalize. People who got in at that point of time, now what are you doing? Because the last year, the market has given you exactly zero. Okay, maybe 4% or whatever. And FD rates are at 7-8%. So what do? So anyway, if you've come in the markets here in the last 2-3 years, then it's a good time for you to understand where you are, what you've done. Let me just take 2 steps back and talk about the basics, because a lot of time people don't get the basics.
Yeah.
Whether you're at 25 or 35, whatever, which is emergency corpus and insurance. I think those 2 are non-negotiable things. Emergency corpus again depends on what's your profile and stuff like that. I usually like to make emergency corpus into essential expenditure multiplied by 6 months. Okay, and essential does not include an iPhone. It's basically what you need. So emergency corpus is something that all of us need to have, and you should park it usually in a very high quality fixed deposit or debt mutual fund, depending on how your risk return profile is. Health insurance, again, it's not enough that your company does it. You need to have one of your own. And health insurance, it's always a good idea to do it when you're healthy.
Yeah.
Don't wait to go to the hospital, and again, see if your parents have it. It's always a good idea to have your parents' health insurance insured, because health costs are just going to go up and illnesses are not going to go away. Okay, because there's more of the lifestyle shit happening these days. Anyway, so emergency corpus and health insurance, and I'll also put life insurance out there. If these three things are sorted, now we can have a conversation. But okay, what next? I think then what's a good idea is to understand your risk profile. And 30s is usually a good time, because like I said, your confidence is high. You've got a good job. You have visibility, I would say, of at least the next 5 years. And that's usually a good thing. Start setting your goals. I think goals, and then you work backward. This is the stuff that I wish I was told when I was 30s, very, very clearly, because in 30s, I honestly didn't care.
Yeah, and it does sound quite simple, right? But even I didn't care in the early 30s.
I didn't. For me, it was like, wow, I'm in a job, and at that point of time, I think the markets are going up. My salary was doing like really well, and why did I wouldn't really care for the 40s. I mean, that was 2003, 2004 for me. Yeah, that was like, the multiplexes were coming in. There were no coffee shops then at that point of time, and it was just a very good place to be in. Absolutely no visibility on 40s, leave alone. I'm 50 now, right? And that's the stuff that I wish I was told. That listen, just take down a pen and paper, sit down, and tell me what you want to do at 40. Tell me what you want to do at 50. Okay, so that's the first hack or tip or whatever you want to call it, and then work backwards. The second thing then, after that goal planning thing, is house plays a very important role in this, in your entire finances. It can completely take your, your numbers here and numbers there and all. And house is a tricky one. Best case scenario, you've got parents and you really don't need to care about your house. Fantastic. You can be more aggressive in life. If you need to buy your own house, 30s is when you start planning.
Okay.
Ideally, it's going to take you, my guess is 7 years to just get the deposit and then figure out all that. Okay, so there you go. That's again plan for the house. I don't know whether you're going to be married or kids, because that again adds layers to the entire thing. Because if you have a kid, the first 10 years are not such a big deal. It's later on when you need to save for that. So you set up goals like this.
Usually, what is with the housing situation though, right? What is more advisable, rent or buy?
Oh yeah, big one. On my show, I've always done so many episodes with so many different types of people. And I, being at the age of 50, I know now a lot of corporate people who are pretty much on the verge of retirement and stuff like that. And this conversation again comes up because most of them have their own house, probably a second house also. And there are some who just refuse to even give in now. I mean, these people could like buy the house they're staying in and again, buy some more, but they're like, I'm getting an asset at 2-3% yield. Why should I even, my money in the market is earning so much. Even if I keep it in an FD, I'm getting 8% interest. So I'm getting 8% interest for an asset for which I'm paying 2% yield. It financially doesn't make sense. But that's the Excel part. The emotional part, unfortunately, is a different trip. It really depends on person to person. So I usually say, rent when you want, when you can. Buy when you must. Keep the buying only when you're like really convinced. Like point number 1, you're never going to leave Bombay, India, wherever you are. And you're going to be there for a significantly long period of time. Number 2, you can't stand landlords. I was in that phase once where, landlords usually, if you have a good landlord, great. If you don't, then that's a bit of a thing. And I've seen both sides of the table. If you can't deal with that, I couldn't deal with it. Then you might want to consider. And I think third is the market, that tends to play a role, because I know that in 2020 during the lockdown, it was bizarre. I mean, there was stuff that people hadn't seen in 10 years. You had deals coming in, you had discounts coming in, you had offers coming in, interest rates were low. People just jumped in, and 1 year later they were like, we did the right thing. With people who actually believed in the rent equation. But that's not going to happen again. At least, let's not hope for a lockdown or a situation like this again. But rent, I think, should suit your needs. It gives you a lot of flexibility in life. Rent gives you a lot of flexibility in life. But use that period to just keep a goal somewhere in your mind that at the age of 40, if you want to buy a house, what would those economics work like for you at that point of time? So I think that is a slightly complicated answer, because there really is no black and white answer to that question, Anish.
Yeah, fair. And I think in Bombay, the conversation always becomes that I really don't want to do up the house too much because it's on rent and you don't know what's going to happen in the next 2 years.
Yeah.
Where the landlord sells it. We've heard those stories so often, right?
Yeah, and the good part about being in Bombay, pretty much anywhere, is that you'll always have options for rent. You will always have options. I mean, the western suburbs you stay in, where I stay, there are always options, but they also come at a cost. And usually housing costs, rent is somewhere like 30% of your income. That can be a large chunk, okay, but it's not 50%, which is what EMIs typically can do if you buy at an early stage in your career. That can really eat in a big chunk. The advantage, of course, is that you've sorted a very big need very early in life, and that gives you a lot of freedom later on. So, like I said, positives, negatives, positives, negatives.
Because you said 30%. Are there any more of these kind of formulas? Like this
so
much
India has a nice savings rate itself of 30%. Okay, which means that, after you earn 100 rupees and you spend and everything, you still got 30 that you can put and invest. And that's a very strong culture that's still true even today in this age of whatever you want to call it, consumerism and loans and all that. So, and this is data that I've got from the guests on my show. We've got a really strong credit culture. I mean, there'll always be non-performing assets and people who default, that's fine. But that said and done, and that culture even till today is still more or less intact. You have a lot of friends in your age group. I don't think you really would have heard of many people who defaulted on their credit card debt.
Yeah.
If they have, they learn from this shit. There's no one that would really go into a debt spiral. It does happen, but it's not that often. But a good equation to remember is, just in your 30s, please save as much as you can. This is the age when you're most susceptible to lifestyle random decisions, okay? Ayyashi ka kharcha, because you're in friends, you're in groups, you're going out, you've got a good job, you've got everything in your favor. So that need to, to just splurge is crazy.
That urge is real. It is absolutely
It's real. I know it. I've been through it. And I was in my 30s when there wasn't even an iPhone. And even when the iPhone came, I was in the whole, buy one every year. And you remember that. I mean, you were on Twitter.
What did you guys splurge on in your 30s?
You're making me sound like an old man. Watches. Watches used to be a thing out there. I remember I probably had a different watch for every day. Oh, good Lord. I hope my wife is not. I got married in 2005. Anyway, watches were the thing.
Yeah.
Going out today in 30s, wherever, if you're in Bombay, going out to the thing. Bangalore obviously is getting that culture now.
Yeah.
But metros like Bombay and Delhi have always had going out. You have to. Weekend means movie, drinks and all of that stuff was always there. So, and that was stuff that I used to always think as essential. I even think of it as essential now. Like, I have a 14-year-old. It's obvious, okay, that Avatar is out. You got to go and see it. You got to see it in IMAX. So, as of now, I would not think of, watching a movie like Avatar in a single screen.
Yeah.
That time you didn't have multiplexes. And the difference between a single screen and IMAX is big. Okay, and you repeat that for 4 times a month or even twice a month, which is how often you would see a movie. It adds up.
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah. And at that point of time in my 30s, so that's the answer to your question. There were no sneakers, there were no hoodies, there were no mobile phones, but yeah, these were the expenses.
There's a watch channel I follow, Watch Gringa on YouTube.
What's she do?
And she just put out her last video saying that, you know what, guys, winter's coming. It's okay to not buy watches. We all love watches. And it's also always impulsive to buy one more watch. But it's okay to take it easy and not think about it too much.
It's good to be sobering good to be sober that way. Yeah. But yeah, And Swatch was my thing. And I never really reached to the whole Swiss watch thing. Although I think when my office colleagues had gone for a trip to Hong Kong and they had gotten fake Rolexes and fake Omegas, and I just took one and I was like, wow, this looks cool. I can't afford that. So that's what I used to splurge on.
Yeah. So 30s splurging, I see that in my circles quite a bit, right?
Yeah.
What about credit cards? Because I have, again, in my peers, what I see is that me and a lot of us will only use credit cards, and then I have a few friends who don't have a credit card, and I don't understand why would you not have a credit card.
So why would you not have a credit card is I guess because it just makes things a little bit simpler for you. You're just spending, you know that your money's in the bank and you're spending from that, and that's it, you're done. You don't owe anyone any money. And for a lot of people that is comfort, whether it's a UPI, whether it's a debit card or whatever it is, that just kind of makes people more comfortable towards that. I personally can't deal with that because of my circumstances that I haven't worked now for 10 years. So I don't have a recurring salary. So but expenses will keep on recurring.
Yeah.
So the only way for me to manage them is through credit cards, because I can spend on whatever I have to spend and figure out the income later, because a credit card is a 0% 45-day loan and someone's actually giving you points to spend.
Yeah.
So why would you say no to that? If you can instill some discipline in yourself, credit cards are awesome. I mean, I'm going by my limited experience of that. And I can't, I mean, I've had a credit card since my first job. So that would be late 90s. And I blew up. I think the first month or second month itself, I went overboard and I didn't pay. And I learned my lesson then. Yeah. But since then, I've never once defaulted. I've got a credit score of about 795 or something. And we've done so many shows on credit habits, credit scores. It's a good thing to have a credit card because it just instills that discipline in you. And eventually in life, you will need, car loan, home loan, etc., etc. This just gets you into that habit.
If nothing else, it's just emergency money available.
What a great point. Yeah. And I've used it like that. I remember I was in a situation once where I had to go to the hospital and I had to make a down payment of 50K.
Yeah.
And I think my bank balance didn't have that much at that point. I just swiped my card. Absolutely right. I kind of missed that one. Good one. Yeah, I agree.
And of course, points.
Rewards. Yeah,
how about
points.
That? Free, who doesn't want free flights?
Who doesn't want free? And today, you've got cards that just lavish their stuff on you. And they really go out of the way to ensure that you have a great experience. I mean, there are miles, there are hotel, but there's so much you can do out there.
I recently figured that I have golf access on 2 of my cards, which I somehow didn't know till now.
Yeah.
And that itself is like a great thing if you remotely want to avail of any of those things.
Cannot hit the ball, man. I tried once. I think we were at Ambi and there's a course out there
for me.
Yeah.
There's a PGA certified course.
Our friend, it's PGA certified?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that. So our friends took us out there and I could not hit the ball. I mean, then I had to come back and do the putting and all that. But I know it's a lot of fun. I do, I really enjoy watching it. If I had a chance, would I learn golf? Yeah, but I wish I'd planned for this in my 30s.
I was just going to say 30s is a good time to learn golf. Coming from an army background, we had access to golf when we were growing up, and only in 12th standard there was this golf coaching thing happening, and Dad insisted that I go for it. And
which part of India was it? Because you guys have traveled,
This
right?
was in Bareilly.
Wow.
And man, that was the best thing. You get hooked onto it. The moment you get it, it's crazy. It looks so easy, right?
You're right. It looks so easy.
Yeah.
And I couldn't hit the ball. But yeah, I get what you're saying. Whenever I watch the Masters or whatever it is, the entire Grand Slam period, that's the one thing that I really wish that I had picked this up and I could play it and I had friends, because it's a great place to chill with your friends.
Yeah.
Honestly, that's what I've thought. Not many options, I think, in Bombay as compared to maybe a Delhi. You've got Chembur, you've got Mahalakshmi and all, but you're absolutely right on that also.
Couple of things going back to what you said. One, of course, I think eating out is a big expense for a lot of us. And Bombay is just expensive now.
Very.
Like when I go to Bangalore, it feels kind of cute. Because Bangalore is so well priced. Or you go to Pune or something. Bombay is ridiculous.
You can't do anything about it, right?
Yeah.
And you go to hang out with friends. So I think there's no hack about it. I was on Ashton's show, the habit coach, and he asked me the same thing. What do you do about this? I said, listen, the definition of friends is people who you can hang with.
Yeah.
They should not be people that you aspire to. Yeah. So choose your friends wisely. If these are people who expect you to, to go to a silo every week or, hang around and that kind of thing, and if that's not your thing, then you need to reconsider that.
The second thing is you said that apart from the insurance from your company, get another insurance.
Sure, yeah.
Why is that though?
So that because you don't know what the company's insurance covers for. Okay, and usually that's like a blanket cover that the company buys for 100 people. Your needs might be different. And this gives you that much more flexibility. Something's not covered out there, it'll be covered out here. It just gives you, and you can that's going to always be with you irrespective of whichever job you go for. Because you might change your jobs and you don't know what the cover, what might be covered here versus might be covered there. So it's usually a good idea to have your own independent policy which is suited precisely to your needs, which are which could be unique. You might want a family cover which the company might not want to provide, and sometimes it works the other way. The company covers are actually better, but this still works for you because you're independent. You're not always dependent on the company.
Yeah, fair point. And when you say that, ask yourself, where do you want to be in your 40s and 50s? What's the kind of answers you've heard?
So one thing is that by 40, getting rid or rather providing for your essentials is a big thing. Like at 40, I need to have my essential stuff sorted. Whether it is, rent, whether it is one car, whether it is having visibility for my kids' schools and all that. And then I want to see now what my options are in life. I'm kind of, I'm 15 years into my job. Okay, let's assume that you're 25 to 40.
Yeah.
So you kind of start setting goals for when you're 45 or 50. Say that this is it. At this age, now I'm done. And I'm now going to go back to what I really wanted to do when I was in school or whatever. And then making a profession out of something that you love. This, by the way, does not mean that you generally go to the hills, retire and you grow vegetables. I'm not talking about that stuff.
Yeah.
A lot of people have that and, fair respect to them. If that's what rocks their boat, then great. No. Here I'm talking of people who want to pursue careers where the income is not predictable. Okay? Which means that you want to be in a situation where your expenses are taken care of. You will cut back on the lifestyle expenses and you want to pursue stuff that you really, really like doing. And I've had people like absolutely diverse kind of things there. Teaching kids. Okay. Photography is a big one for a lot of people. Travel is a big one. But again, travel is also expensive, and especially when in your late 40s and that point of time you can't do the whole backpacking thing.
You're not doing hostels and stuff.
You're not.
That really adds up though.
Yeah. So that then then they have to figure, okay, how do I do my income stream? And that's when they go back to their core skills. Like if someone, for example, has worked in the stock markets, and I know someone who does that. He ensured that for 15 years he invested in enough companies that would give him enough dividends that could take care of his essential expenses for literally the rest of his life, mix of debt and equity, whatever. And then this guy would travel, okay, and whenever he saw some ups and downs in his income or whatever it is, he would trade. Okay, I'm not saying trading is a recommended thing. Trading again is a very difficult thing, but he was reasonably taken care of, and he's also now leading a reasonably good life. Obviously, I wouldn't compare him to someone who is still working. Those guys have now gone to the next level because they're also working for 10 years more, right? They've got even more money. So you have to accept that you have to cut back on some stuff if you really want to pursue your passion. Now, what your passion is something that I can't say for everyone. It could be a different thing for different people, but like I said, you will then switch to something whose income you're not sure of, but you've got enough money to take care of your expenses for longish period of time.
Is trading suddenly a new thing again? Because my Instagram is flooded with courses.
All the best to them. I wouldn't touch that with a barge pole. I would not. I mean, there's too much of... It's just not for me. Okay, I'm not saying that trading is, a fool's but there's enough data to show. Again, it's something that we've spoken about a lot on the show, on my podcast. The odds of you consistently beating the markets are tough.
Yeah.
A very good chance that you'll have some massive payout days, few and far between. Very high chances of you losing the entire thing also very soon. So yes, please do all the courses. You'll make the trainer very rich, and if you can learn something from there, you would need exceptional skills to be in that very top percentile of people who make obscene amounts of money, and those who do not do it by chance. They spend 18 hours a day upwards, just doing that over and over again, 5 days a week, weekends included. It's a tough life. I wouldn't, want that.
Yeah, this sounds like 45 minutes a day in the morning and
no,
it's done.
No, man, trading is tough.
We'll take a short break, and when we come back, we'll talk about some sound and perhaps some stupid investment choices you can also make in your 30s.
Hey, what a great week it has been on the IVM Podcast Network. We have a special announcement introducing Club Paisa Vaisa, where you get episodes of Paisa Vaisa 3 days before release, bonus and ad-free content, and access to the full show archive. So get your yearly membership today for only Rs 699. Log on to club.ivmpodcasts.com/Paisa Vaisa. On The Habit Coach, Ashden talks to Dr. Vaidya's co-founder Arjun Vaidya about the legacy business and the feeling he had while taking over the business. On The Origin of Things, Deepak, aka Chuck, narrates the interesting story behind the names of two iconic rock music venues. On Smarter with Sid, Siddharth explains the difference between strategy and planning. And on Just a Filmy Game Show, Antariksh quizzes comedians Vrinda Bhakchandani and Namrata Arora. New episodes are out on the IVM Pop channel every Saturday. And once again, don't forget to visit our merch store on ivmpodcast.com. We have some really exciting stuff for you over there. Follow us on social media. We are IVM Podcast on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram and LinkedIn. If you like our show, spread the word. Tell your friends and don't forget to rate and review them wherever you're listening to them. You'll also find our shows on youtube.com/IVM Podcasts. And finally, we would like to thank our sponsors this week, Capgemini and HDFC Mutual Fund. Thank you for making this possible.
Welcome back to Anish Thing. I'm with Anupam. Anupam, 30s, that's the whole topic today. What are some sound investment decisions you can make and some perhaps stupid investment decisions you can also make?
Sound is, I think, get your asset allocation right. Again, I wish I was told this. 30s, I just wanted the next multi-bagger. I just wanted that stock which would go up 10 times and 100 times. And I actually got one, but I sold.
Which was that?
Let's not go there. But I sold too early. See, that's the thing. Regret is a tough thing, man. Anyway, so a sound investment is always something that is regulated by the market, and there are rules for that. That you don't go into any shady stuff. Whether it is stocks, whether it is mutual fund, whether it's equity, whether it's debt, all of that stuff is what I would consider as sound. I think setting up a good strategy, whatever, it could be 60% equity, 40% debt, whatever rocks your boat, usually 100 minus age is a good barometer to go by. A lot of people recommend that. I personally haven't done that. I've always been 100% in equity because that's my career. So getting that piece right is sound. That I want 60% in equity, 40% in debt, or whatever your number is. Within equity, I'm going to put half in, let's say, equity mutual fund and the other half in stocks that I've really, really, really researched well. Or I can put the entire thing in equity mutual funds. Within that, I'll choose between large cap in index funds and small and mid cap in active stuff. There's again something that's come to me from our guests on the show. It's not I don't give financial advice for a living. I think that would be sound. I think that if I had caught on to that also earlier, I think things would have been a little bit different for me. So that's the sound part. The stupid part, honestly, I just give you my own example of selling something that's and that to me has always come across as a regret with a lot of people, right? Fund managers that I've met, they don't mind buying into a stock a little bit late. Okay, let's take the example of Bajaj Finance. That's like a pet among everybody. There's a stock that used to be in 3 digits or something back in the 2000s and all that, and today it's like some 5,800 or something after going to 8,000.
Wow.
And a lot of people, had ample time to, sit and analyze a company, etc., etc. A lot of them doubled their money, then doubled their money, and then doubled their money, and then sold. And then the stock again went up 5 times. So regret keeps on coming a lot to me from a lot of conversations that I've had. It doesn't matter if they've got other stocks that have done also very well. But letting go of a stock that you had and then went on to double is kind of... so that's what I would put in the stupid category. If you have if you have a good framework for why you want to sell, won't come in the 30s, by the way. You sell just because you've doubled your money. That's a good thing to stick by. Okay, stupid. Why people go into stuff like crypto? I don't know what. See, I'm a believer in the entire thing. Okay, it has a future. Obviously, things will shape out. I don't know what they will be. I would rather buy crypto I would rather buy Bitcoin when it's $100,000, but via an ETF, via an index fund, because I know that I'm going to get my stuff back. Exchanges have collapsed. I mean, what is SBF? How does an exchange collapse? How does So yeah, that's what I would put out there. Stuff that you do not understand, stuff that you cannot liquidate, stuff that locks you up, avoid that. I would not go into that. For me, liquidity is like a really big thing. I have no problems in earning a lower rate of interest, right? I'm a big fan of FDs myself, okay, which again gets me a lot of pain and grief and all that. But I love them for the fact that FDs are the only product that gives you a guaranteed rate of return of capital, and it's 24-hour access to your money. You press a button and you get the money back. So yeah, I mean, that's what I would say sound and stupid.
For me, crypto is one thing that, like, again, I've seen so many people suddenly get into crypto, right? And I still don't understand most of it. And I have friends who work in the crypto space, and every time they'll be telling me something. I was like, dude, if I can't understand this in 1 minute, how is this making sense? And yeah, just that whole...
Tell me one thing. How do you approach it as a founder? Because, I mean...
Crypto?
No. Your money as a founder, because that's a totally different ballgame. I've been talking all this while throughout for people who've got salaries and all that. Like I said at the start of the show, I can't for the love of me figure out how it would be for...
So for me, I've never had a corporate job. So...
How about that, huh?
Yeah, so I've come from that space where monthly salary was never a thing.
Yeah.
So when I came to Bombay and started working, still remember I got a assignment and I got a check for 5,000 rupees, and that from a very prominent restaurant in Bombay that's no longer there. That 5,000 rupee check bounced.
Are you serious?
And I was like, dude, how can that happen? But for me, it's only when at Hipkaska and at Swami, you get a salary, and I was like, wow, this actually feels great to have a monthly salary. But I think as a founder, what I see generally is that it's very glorified to raise money. And this is what I tell everyone. If you're good without raising money, do that. Raising money is not the goal, right? Growing revenue is the goal. But I think in India, we just glorify fundraise so much, and we don't talk about failures and the kind of pressures founders also go through.
Oh, yeah.
So just because you're a founder and your company also might be doing well, your salary could be very normal. Also, your salary will be approved by a board or investors or whatever. and India, again, I think somewhere has a mentality that founders should just keep working, struggling.
There's a good chance you might not even get your salary on time?
Oh, yeah, of course. Salary on time is a luxury that a lot of people would have. Because you'll always pay yourself last, right? If there is a cash flow issue or something. But I think as a founder, you definitely need to have decent amount of... If you have a cushioning, that'll be great. I never had a cushioning. Of course, I do recognize my privilege that I have a home, or I know I can still figure out and borrow money if I really have to. But it can be very tricky.
Yeah.
And like you said, right, 30s, if you're setting your goals right, my goals could be completely linked to how Swami is going to do in the next 3 years.
The good part about that, I feel, is that you're already pursuing your passion.
Yeah.
The stuff that you really love to do. I mean, you've put everything that you have out there.
Yeah.
In your case, it's Swami. In the case of our listeners, it might be something else.
Yeah.
I think a lot of the people that are here from the corporate job don't get to do that.
Yeah.
Time and again. And especially in these last, 5 odd, I would say post 2014, right, when the whole startup boom happened in India, kind of regret, because by the time you're in your mid-30s or 40s, mid-40s also, you spend 20 years in a job. At that point of time, jumping to a startup doesn't come easy.
Yeah.
Saying that I'm going to quit my job, I'm going to start my whole thing, your risk-taking appetite has completely changed. You can't take failure. You can take failure, but that thinking that it could compromise your finances kind of softens that. Like, I'm 50 and I know for a fact that I can't sell everything and start my own startup. No way. Yeah. So that's what I'm talking about.
Like Sonika says, she could never do it.
Yeah. But she said that, huh?
Yeah. So Sonika's my sister who's been on the podcast as well.
Yeah.
And she does fantastically well in her job, but she's very clear that...
She's been doing stuff that she likes, because I've been following her try. she was at NDTV and, and now
so her trajectory is great, very, very inspirational. But she's like, I would never do what you guys do.
Yeah. It's also because she's got a very satisfying job in the work that she does. And, a lot then depends on the company, because the company just takes a lot of care of their employees. Not many companies do that.
Yeah, her company does. I had a pretty interesting experience the other day. We were interviewing someone.
Mm-hmm.
And she was like, I want to know how much money does the company have, and what kind of runway do you guys have for the next year, 2, 3 years, 4 years, or whatever. So I was like, well, what happened? She's like, my current company, we've not been paid for 5 months.
Yikes.
And we don't know what's
5
happening.
months?
Which is...
Oh, that's tough.
Yeah, of course. And I just had to tell her that, listen, you could be a unicorn startup and you could shut in 2 months. Like, just, again, going back to the point that just because you're well-funded...
Are you serious?
Doesn't mean that you'll be there for... It's not guaranteed, right?
No, I know it's not, but...
Yeah.
Wow.
So even when people are joining funded startups, that expectation that suddenly things are going to exponentially grow and all, like ESOPs, for example, in India, it's not too many liquidation events for startup ESOPs, right? There have been some, but there have not been that many at the end of the day. And
I've had a couple of friends who, again in their 40s and late 50s, got lured into startups and jumped ship, after spending a fairly long period of time in really well-established company. Then they didn't have great experiences. And they're like, we got good salaries, ESOPs and all, but they just ringed. I mean, they just nichod diya, bolte na Hindi mein. They're like long hours. And 50s especially is not the time when you want to be doing 18-hour days. You don't want to be doing that. There's a lot of stuff that's going on out there on the health front. You want to have your life sorted at least by that point of time.
Yeah, and like what I was saying earlier, as a founder, you're expected to be working every weekend. And of course, if there is work, you will do it. But that shouldn't be the culture or the norm. You also need to have enough time for yourself to be recharged to ultimately build things, right?
Which I have to ask you, my kid loves watching Shark Tank. I have no idea why. Actually, I do have an idea why.
I love Shark Tank.
There you go, see?
Yeah.
What do you think about how real is that stuff? In the sense of the whole founders thing pitching and, the VCs or whoever they are, the sharks. What do you think about that?
I think it's a great format. So India one, I think I can already see a lot more improvement this year in terms of how the sharks are behaving. I think they've got a much better hang of it. But I've been a big fan of Shark Tank, the US one. And the good thing there is that you have people who've, again, even on the Indian one, you have people who have companies that are valued extremely highly. And like someone like a boat, I love what Aman's built, right? It's just the revenue they're making is absolutely crazy. So I think it's good that when you're pitching to people who've built companies rather than just VCs.
Yeah.
Because I think to me the VC mentality is looking at an Excel sheet versus if you're pitching to another founder, they know how tough things can be and you need that angle of reality to come in. Like on Excel, everything looks great, right? 20% month on month, 100% growth, this, that. Practically that most likely is not going to happen.
Yeah, one question that used to get asked back when fundraising was great is, what do I do as a 30-year-old if I've just sold out? I've got like a massive chunk of money out there. I don't know what to tell those kind of people. And very few and far between. All the best to them is what I would say. I think for them, funding their next venture kind of happens from that money.
Yeah.
Some of it, of course, goes to, like I said, Ayashi Kharcha. So you'll suddenly have
if you've sold your company and got a good exit, come on. Little bit of that is very well deserved.
Yeah. So that I have no problems with that. If you buy a house then, now that makes sense.
Yeah.
That's what I'm talking about. But committing to a home loan at the age of 25 for a 20-year product, which is going to eat up 30, 40, 50% of your salary, not sure that's a good place to be.
At what age would someone's education loan get over if they have that?
I don't know how those mechanics work, but I believe that if you're someone who's an MBA, the loan also depends on how the person who's giving you that loan assesses your chances of getting a job.
Okay.
The US has a pretty tough scene. I think the legislation has to be passed out there to ease out some. India is not really that in that boat. My guess is, I don't know, maybe the first 2 or 3 years should take care of your education loan. And I know that sounds like a lot, but I think that, education loans are still on the higher side in terms of interest rates. And I'm talking only of the MBA ones.
Okay.
Undergrad is still new. But yeah, it should take you a couple of years out there is what I think.
Thanks so much, Anupam. This was great. I think we'll quickly wind up. Anything else you want to add?
Yeah, I mean, I'll just reiterate my whole goal planning thing.
Yeah.
Goal planning thing, learning. Learning is something that you really must do. Setting a good foundation, spending time on understanding your finances. I think that is something that gets easily glossed over. I would, for example, recommend a really close monitoring of your income and expenses and your savings. Look at it this way, that in 10 years from 30 to 40, if you're just committed to say a 10,000 rupees SIP versus increasing that SIP every year, that itself can make a huge difference at the end of 10 years. Okay, so regularly committing your commitments to the markets, savings to investments to the markets, and setting a really strong foundation. And please learn about finances. I mean, by 30s, if you don't know, say, what's the interest rate on your credit card or how an insurance policy works, or if you don't have a demat, then I think you need to really relook that thing. But be aggressive in saving. I think 30s is what really matters. That's the only thing I would just recap the entire thing.
Any resources people should look at? Of course, there's your podcast, your book, but any other apps or Instagram accounts?
No, man. I don't. I just write. But Zerodha University is a pretty good resource. I mean, it's a portal and it's got pretty much everything you want to know about the stock markets. My book has references to, I think, about 4 or 5 books. People can read up on that if they want. And I think if you follow a few good, sensible people, on Twitter or whatever is your social media, there is Reddit's got a fantastic India investment subreddit out there, which has got like some huge fan base. So you got to curate your content in the way that you like. Are you someone who likes to read in peace? Then you probably need blogs and books for that. If you're someone who likes to keep constantly updating in a conversation format, then Reddit, Twitter, Instagram, I have no idea, by the way.
Yeah.
But please choose your content a little bit seriously. There is no, unfortunately, there's still no quick
There
lectures.
are some Instagram accounts that dance and give you like finance advice, and like that's where we've come to now.
Nothing wrong in that. As long as it spreads the message of awareness and not making a quick buck.
Yeah.
It's all cool.
This one wasn't even about quick buck, but it's like this is serious stuff that someone should be paying a lot of attention to, but I think that's to do with our attention span at the end of the day.
It's okay. Whatever, rocks people's boats, and if they can understand it in that format, all the best to them.
Yeah. Cool. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me, Anish.